Good morning, students. Welcome again to your computer lecture. I request all the students to kindly remove their workbook and a pencil. In this lecture, we will begin with our new chapter. Chapter number 3, Working with the Keyboard. Page number 14. I'm sure we all are ready by now. Let us begin, students. Chapter number 3, Working with the Keyboard. You have already studied the various parts of the computer. The keyboard is one of the main parts of a computer. It is connected to the CPU with a wire. It is a small rectangular device that is used to type on the computer. A keyboard contains small buttons which are called keys. There are different set of keys that are used to type alphabets, numbers, special characters and symbols. Thus, each key represents a number, letter, function or a symbol. So the first paragraph tells us about what a keyboard is. We have already studied in our previous standards like standard 1, standard 2 about the input devices, the keyboard. We have already used keyboards during our practical sessions. So we will try to understand more about it. So keyboard is one of the main parts of a computer. It's one of the main input device. It is connected to the CPU with a wire. Nowadays we also have wireless keyboards, wireless keyboard and wireless mouse. The shape of the keyboard is rectangle. It's a rectangular device and it is used to type or enter text. Now the text can be in the form of letters, numbers, special characters and symbols. So each key on the keyboard has some or the other function that it carries. And the buttons on the keyboard are known as keys. Remember this. The buttons on the keyboard are also known as keys. Let us continue to read. You have already learned about some keys earlier. Let us understand more about the functions of the keys on the keyboard. You can use a keyboard to type a paragraph, letter, or an essay on your computer. Right. So during our practical sessions, as I mentioned earlier, we have used the keyboard to enter some type of data in the form of text, right? We have used Notepad, WordPad, right? These applications we have used, and with the help of keyboard, we have entered some of the other text, like a paragraph, letter, an essay on myself, right? You remember all this? Great. So we will try to learn the other keys on the keyboard or the functionalities of other keys on the keyboard. And you see you have a picture below, students. There's a picture of the keyboard. Let's take a closer look. You see the keyboard is divided into many sections. Starting with the top left, you see ESCAPE, escape key, followed by function keys. Then we have number keys, backspace key, right? Coming clockwise, then we have enter keys, arrow keys, alphabet keys, spacebar key, and caps lock key. So these are different set of keys, and they are placed in specific rows. Let's try to understand what are these rows or what are these highlights. Keyboard rows. There are 6 rows of keys on a keyboard. How many rows, students? 6. There are 6 rows of keys on a keyboard. Let's see what are those. The first row contains the escape and function key. right? So the first row contains the escape and function key. Take a look. So this is the first row. Escape key and function key is the first row. The second row contains number and special keys. It includes numbers from 0 to 9, symbols such as exclamation, dollar sign, and percentage, and the backspace key. So the second row contains numbers and special keys. If you see just below the function key in the picture, you can see number 1, 2, 3 till 9 and 0, and on the numbers there are special signs. On number 1 you have exclamation sign, then on number 2 you have @ symbol, right? So those are special keys or symbols. And there's also the backspace key. We will continue to read, students. The next 3 rows contain alphabet and special keys. These 3 rows are referred to as top row, home row, and bottom row. The alphabet keys are used to type a letter, word, sentence, or paragraph. The special keys include caps lock, enter, and shift. So the next 3 rows contain alphabet and special keys, which are also known as top row, home row, and bottom row. If you look in the picture, the top row, home row, and bottom row are highlighted in blue. See here. We will come back to this picture. We will read the fourth row as well, and then we will understand. The last row consists of special keys such as spacebar, control, and alt keys. The spacebar key is used to insert space between 2 words. So these are the 6 rows, students. Let's look at here. So the first row contains escape and function key. Here, this is the first row. The second row contains number and special key, which includes 0 to 9 and the backspace key, this one, the one which consists of numbers. In the next 3 rows, those contains alphabet and special keys, the one highlighted in blue. So the first row is also known as top row, then home row, and bottom row, the ones highlighted in blue. Now this row contains caps lock key, which is here, and the enter key. And there is also the shift key right below here, right below the caps lock key we have shift key. And the last row, it consists of special keys such as spacebar, control, and alt. So this is the spacebar key, here is the alt key, and here is the control key. Once we have the keyboard in practice sessions, we can understand this and we can try to relate this. Alright? So these are the top 6 rows. Take a look. This is just as an example for your knowledge. Additional keys on the keyboard. Right? The Windows key, the spacebar, alt, menu key, control, shift, This is another example for the keyboard. Take a look. This is just for your reference, students. Now, as we are learning working with the keyboard, we also need to understand how do we place our hands or fingers on these rows or on the keys. It's very important, students, because most often we type with one or two fingers, right? Most of us, even I used to do the same. However, it's very important how do we place our hands or fingers on the rows. So let's read. Placing your hand on the rows. When using the keyboard, your hands are mainly placed on the middle three rows, which contain alphabets and symbols. These rows are the top row, home row, and bottom row. While the placement of the fingers keep changing from one row to another, the thumbs always rest on the spacebar key. Right? Remember the last line, or try to remember the last line. The thumb always rest on the spacebar key. So no matter how you are placing your fingers on the keyboard in the rows, according to the rows, your thumb will always be on the spacebar key. Yes, when you are using the keyboard, it is of importance that you place your fingers accordingly so that you use the keyboard smoothly. So students, as we are learning to work with the keyboard, like more about keyboard, let me ask you a question. Ever wondered as to why the keys on the keyboard are placed so randomly? Why the keys are not placed in a sequence? Like why not A, B, C, D in a sequence? Ever wondered or this thought arised? I'm sure you may have. Now the reason dates back to the manual typewriters. I'm sure we all have seen a typewriter, or we all know what a typewriter is. Let me give you an example. This is how a typewriter looked like. Now you see, students, on the keyboard of this typewriter, it's the same sequence starting with Q, W, E, R, T, Y, QWERTY, right? So now why this happened? Earlier the keys were placed in sequence, but the typing was so fast that the mechanical arms were not able to give the right output. So because of this, the keys were placed randomly, and hence the sequence or the pattern has been followed in the standard keyboards also, so that the typing could be reduced and we could have a clear output, or the characters that we type should be without any errors. So let us continue reading further. How do we type using the home row? Now see in the picture, students, there is a diagrammatic information about the placement of your finger on the top row. Q, W, E, R, T will be your first four fingers of your left hand, and on Y, U, I, O, P you will cover with the other four fingers of your right hand. Now see the index finger, the top finger, the first finger has to control two letters, both on the right as well as the left. And as we read, the thumb always rests on the space bar. So once we conduct our practical sessions, we will try this pattern. Alright. So let us continue to read. Typing using the top row. The first row of the alphabet key is known as the top row. The fingers of the left hand should be placed on the letters Q, W, E, R and T. The fingers of the right hand should be placed on the letters Y, U, I, O and P. You need to switch the left index finger between the letters R and T and the right index finger between the letters U and Y and U. As I told you all earlier in the picture, once again, see the index finger, it has to control two letters. The left index finger will control letter R and T, and the right index finger will control letter Y and U. Typing using the home row. The second row of alphabet keys is called the home row. The home row keys for the left hand include A, S, D, F and G, and for the right hand it includes H, J, K, L and semicolon. You need to switch the left and right index fingers between the letters F, G and H, J respectively. You can take a look again on the home row picture. When you move on to the second row, which is also known as the home row, you will place your fingers on letter A, S, D and the index finger will control F, G, and with your right hand you will type H and J with your index finger and you will control K, L and the semicolon with your other fingers. And typing using the bottom row, the third row of alphabet keys is called the bottom row. The bottom row keys for the left hand include Z, X, C, V and B, and for the right hand include N, M, comma, full stop and forward slash. You need to switch the left and right index fingers between letters VB and NM respectively. Again, it's telling us how to use the keys in the second row or the bottom row. So these three topics, placing your hands on the keyboard rows, tells us the placement of our fingers and how the index finger controls the two set of keys. Few students, those who may have keyboard or a computer at home, can practice this. However, we will try to continue with this pattern of typing once we start our practical sessions as usual. Now we have a practice time on the page number 17. Let's see. A keyboard contains small buttons which are called, right, those buttons are called as keys. The second, the dash key is used to insert space between two words. Right, the longest key on the keyboard. Great, it's a space bar key. So here is the answer. So the first one, the keyboard contains small buttons which are called keys. The second, the space bar key is used to insert space between two words. Alright, let's continue further using the number keys. There are two sets of number keys on the keyboard. One is above the top row, which consists of 10 keys. The other is a number pad, which is on the right side of the keyboard. Apart from numbers, it also contains mathematical operators, enter key and numlock key. This number pad has 17 keys. It gets activated only after you press numlock key. Okay, so using the number keys, there are two sets of number keys. One is placed above the top row, which has special signs as well, special symbols. And the second is the number pad, which consists of 17 keys. So it contains numbers from 0 to 9, and then it has mathematical operators like division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, It also has the numlock key and an enter key. Now what is numlock key, students? Numlock key is the key which is used to activate the number keypad. If the numlock key is off, then you will not be able to use the number pad. So in order to use the number pad, the numlock key has to be pressed, or it should be on. The indicator is above. If you see the picture of the keyboard, if you take a look, the numlock key is right next to F12 key, or it's in between F12 and caps lock key. So depending upon the type of keyboard, the position of these lights may change. However, for you all to know or understand, the numlock key needs to be switched on in order to use the number keypad. There is a note written: when the numlock pad is off, the number keys 2, 4, 8 and 6 act as arrow keys. Right next to the number keypad, we have 4 arrow keys pointing in the 4 directions: left, right, up and down. So when the numlock key is off, the number keys like 2, 4, 6 and 8 will act as the arrow keys. You can see on the picture there are arrows marked. See here. Down arrow on number 2, up arrow on number 8, right arrow on number 6 and left arrow on number 4. So remember, if the numlock key is off, number 2, 4, 6 and 8 will act as arrow keys. You write this down in your notebook as I have written it for you. Write in your notebook. It's an instruction. So I request students to kindly complete the notes, as I have also underlined few words and sentences. You write them in your notebook. So with this, students, we complete our chapter working with the keyboard. I remind you all to write the notes accordingly, which I will send. Thank you for your time, students. Be healthy, be safe. Thank you once again.